They say families honor their elders. No one tells you how easily honor becomes optics. How a smile, a toast, and perfect lighting can hide a quiet erasure. I'm Evelyn Park, 79, retired negotiation professor from Stanford. I live in a Pacific Heights brownstone that once held faculty salons and late arguments about ethics. My small proof of independence is Arthur's Mont Blanc fountain pen, heavy and balanced, the instrument I use to teach students where leverage begins, with clarity. Tonight, at my granddaughter Ava's reception in the Regency Grand's chandeliered ballroom, my place card waits behind a stone pillar, shock open. I sit where I cannot see the dance floor and cannot be seen. I finish my tea, rise without complaint, and, hours later, when the band swells, I cancel the final payments I arranged. Earlier, I noticed the seating map had been reprinted. My photo from our family wall, Arthur in his robes, me beside him, vanished from the lobby montage Ava curated for a clean aesthetic. A coincidence, they'd say. Strategy, I'd say. You don't hide what you prize. If you were me, what would you do? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. I learned diplomacy on picket lines and in boardrooms, not banquets. Politeness has a way of sanding down truth until it looks safe. At dinner last week, when I began, "Your grandfather believed the park name opened doors, but character kept them open." Julia topped off wine and changed the subject to linens. Ava glanced at her watch. Only Noah, the fiancé then, now husband, held my eye and said, "Please, go on." 14 months from now, on my 80th birthday, family documents shift control like a tide table. Lately, Julia speaks of efficiency and streamlining signatures. She calls it care. I call it timing. Back in the ballroom, a photographer sweeps past me toward the head table. "We'll bring you up later," he murmurs kindly, as if I'm a child to be staged. I smile, because smiles are a currency here. On the pillar's far side, speeches bloom with gratitude for hosts who are not me, though I funded deposits from accounts Julia believes she manages. The pen in my clutch taps once against a folded receipt, a metronome for resolve. I don't demand a new seat. I don't signal the maitre d'. I do what strategists do when the room thinks they're furniture. I observe. I note. I choose the moment. Tonight gives me proof. Tomorrow will give me time. When the band strikes the first dance and the room arches toward the couple, I ease away. A shadow with a plan. Outside, Nob Hill wine tastes like salt and afterthoughts. In my car, the screen glows with contracts I adjusted weeks ago. Deposits large, finals automatic, cancellation within 24 hours at my discretion. Thumbprint. Done. A ledger shifts, not out of spite, but out of principle. Honor is not a seat you're granted. It's a standard you uphold. They forgot who raised the standard. I remember. The pen rests warm in my palm, and the path forward sharpens as if someone turned up the house lights. Tomorrow, I verify what I already suspect, and then I move. Morning drizzles soften the Pacific Heights skyline. I brew tea in the kitchen, the one Julia insists should be updated, but I still like the brass fixtures Arthur chose decades ago. The fountain pen rests beside my cup, its weight a reminder that yesterday's decision was not impulse, but opening move. Through the cracked parlor window, voices drift in. Julia and Ava on the terrace. "We'll need to clear her old things," Julia says briskly, tapping her phone. "The guest suite is outdated and we can't risk her changing her mind before the transfer." Ava lowers her voice, but the words carry. "So we accelerate? Get everything signed while she's still sharp?" I freeze. Steam curls from my cup. Sharp. That word lands harder than it should. At dinner that evening, the family table feels crowded, though only 5 of us sit there. Ava beams, her ring flashing. Noah makes polite small talk. Julia pours wine with exaggerated care. I test the waters. "Your grandfather once said the park name opened doors, but character kept them open." Julia doesn't look up. "Does anyone want more bread?" she interrupts. Ava checks her watch. Only Noah glances at me, brow furrowed, as though he knows something's off. Later that night, footsteps creak past my study. I hear Julia's voice, low, clipped through the cracked door. She's slowing down. Still good enough to sign, but we should accelerate everything before the 80th Eric mutters agreement. Papers rustle. The teacup in my hand nearly slips. My pulse beats against porcelain. I am not frail, not fogged. I am listening, and I understand perfectly. I set the cup down with deliberate quiet and open Arthur's desk drawer. Inside, the Mont Blanc gleams, flanked by file folders no one else knows exist. I slide one forward, insurance, investments, contingency notes. Arthur and I drew up years ago. The strategist who taught students how to anticipate adversaries is not gone. She has simply been underestimated. As the laughter from the hallway fades, I touch the pen's cap and whisper, "Time to sharpen. Tomorrow I will not confront them. Confrontation is reactive. Strategy is patient. First I will verify, then I will prepare." The next morning, sunlight cuts through the bay windows in deliberate stripes, gilding the dust motes that hang in the air like suspended verdicts. I sit at the long mahogany desk in my study. Papers spread before me, trust documents, insurance binders, and copies of Arthur's meticulous notes. My children believe these files are forgotten relics. They don't realize I never stopped updating them. Julia breezes in unannounced, carrying a folder. She sets it down on the edge of my desk, as if placing evidence before a judge. "Mother, I've been thinking about the guest suite. It really needs to be modernized. Fresh paint, new lighting, maybe remove some of the antiques. We'd be doing you a favor." Her tone is sugar. Her eyes, steel. I offer a neutral smile. That suite has hosted senators, judges, even a Nobel laureate. It hardly needs rescuing. She laughs lightly. "You know times change. We don't want guests thinking we're stuck in the past." The implication is sharp, past tense, as though I no longer live in the present. That evening, Ava arrives early for dinner, her fiancé Noah in tow. She radiates charm, hugging me tightly. But her gaze slips to the sapphire brooch pinned to my dress, a family heirloom worn by Park women for generations. "Grandma, that brooch will look perfect on me when I walk down the aisle," she says, voice honeyed. I touch it gently. "Tradition has its weight, dear. It's not given. It's earned." Her smile falters for half a breath, then resumes with practiced sweetness. Noah's eyes flicker between us, sensing the subtext, but saying nothing. After dinner, when the others retire upstairs, I wander the halls in silence. Their voices drift from the library, unaware of my presence in the corridor. "Grandma barely notices changes anymore," Ava says. "Exactly," Julia replies. "By next spring, the house and the trust will be under our care." She'll thank us later. A quiet calm spreads through me. Not fear, not sorrow, but the clarity of recognition. They are rehearsing lines for a performance they think I won't understand. I return to my study, close the door, and lift Arthur's silver pocket watch from its velvet case. The engraving glints beneath the lamplight. Truth comes with time. I whisper to the empty room, "Then let time work for me. Tomorrow I will not retreat. I will begin recording, observing, setting each piece on the board. They think I'm a pawn nearing the end of the game. They have forgotten I was once the one teaching strategy to those who fancied themselves players. The pen rests in my hand. A line forms across a fresh sheet of paper. Restoration project. Day 1. The rain patters against the window panes as I sit with the recorder tucked discreetly in my handbag. Its tiny red light glows like a watchful eye. Julia and Ava arrive for tea, their conversation blooming into the same rehearsed tones of affection I've heard too many times. "Mother, you should let us handle more of the finances," Julia begins, stirring her cup with studied nonchalance. "It must be tiring to track all those accounts at your age." I tilt my head, feigning mild confusion. Tiring, perhaps, but necessary. Arthur always said oversight is a discipline, not a burden. Her smile stiffens. Ava jumps in quickly. Grandma, honestly, why not trust us? We just want what's best for you. We could make sure bills are paid, investments managed. You could relax for once relax, a polite synonym for surrender. I nod softly, making a mental note of each word. The recorder hums silently in my bag, capturing their eagerness. When Ava's phone buzzes, she angles it away from me. But I catch a glimpse. A wedding vendor confirming an order. Under my billing name. Later, after they leave, I sift through the wastebasket near the dining table. A crumpled page in Ava's handwriting catches my eye. Talking points for Grandma. How to reassure her, redirect if she resists, remind her of fatigue. Bullet points, like notes for a deposition. I smooth the paper flat, heart steady, pulse controlled. This is no misunderstanding. This is preparation, deliberate and cold. That evening, I dialed Judith, my old colleague and fiercest friend. Her voice crackles with familiar warmth. Margaret, I thought you'd vanished into soft retirement. Hardly, I say evenly. I need your legal mind again, quietly. She doesn't hesitate. Tell me everything. When I finish, silence, then a sharp intake of breath. They're accelerating. If you wait until your 80th, you'll find yourself stripped of both influence and dignity. Then we won't wait, I reply. I hang up, place the pocket watch beside the sapphire brooch on my desk, and feel the weight of both past and present aligning. For years, I let myself shrink into the role of fragile matriarch, hidden behind columns, ignored at my own table. But strategy is not lost with age. It merely waits for its moment. And tonight, I mark the beginning of mine. The following morning begins with an uncharacteristic calm. I brew Earl Grey in my silver pot, letting the steam curl around my face, as if it might shield me from the storm I'm about to set in motion. On the table lies a neat folder labeled Restoration Project, my private name for this campaign. First, Dr. Patel. He has treated me for over 20 years and knows my mind is sharper than many half my age. Margaret, he greets warmly when I arrive for my appointment. What brings you in? An assessment, I say. Cognitive, comprehensive, documented, and expedited. He raises an eyebrow. Any concerns? Not of decline, of convenience. My children find it convenient to hint otherwise. By the afternoon, I leave with signed papers attesting to my clarity, ready to be wielded like armor. Next, I visit Thomas Harrington, my estate attorney. His office smells of leather and time. He listens intently as I explain. They're circling the trust like hawks. I want safeguards, ironclad ones. He leans back, fingers steepled. Revocations, amendments, protections. It can be done. But Margaret, are you prepared for the fallout? I meet his gaze without wavering. Fallout is inevitable, but erosion of legacy is not documents slide across polished wood. My signature flows steady and deliberate. By evening, Caroline's name is erased from all powers of attorney. Ava's from any provisional access. Every safeguard resets in my control. At home, Eleanor has prepared supper, roast chicken, rosemary potatoes. I eat slowly, savoring the ordinary warmth of the meal, because ordinary will soon be gone. Upstairs, I lock the new documents in the safe beneath Judge Sullivan's pocket watch. 2 generations of guardianship, united by metal and ink. When I open my laptop, a blank email draft waits. My fingers hover before typing to Judith. Legal fortress constructed. Cognitive proof secured. Next step, public perception. I don't hit send yet. Instead, I glance at the mirror on the desk. My reflection stares back, posture upright, eyes resolute. Not a ghost, not a liability. The strategist has returned, and Boston will remember it. 3 nights later, Judith and I sit across from one another at the Ritz. the city glittering through tall windows. She studies me like a general reviewing a fellow commander. "So the fortress is built," she says, swirling her martini. "Now we shift the battlefield. They've been painting you as fragile. We'll show them otherwise. We draft a calendar of appearances. Charity teas, alumni galas, the symphony's spring benefit. My sudden return to Boston's social circuit will raise eyebrows, then silence doubts. Reputation is a currency. I intend to spend wisely." At the Henderson Foundation Gala, I wear a navy suit tailored to sharp lines, not the pastel dresses Caroline favored. The dean of Harvard greets me warmly. "Professor Sullivan, we miss your lectures." Conversations hum around me, respectful, curious, validating. I drop subtle hints. Rebecca's grand Fairmont wedding, my generous contributions, my unusual seating, eyebrows arch, whispers spark. Back home, I file every reaction in my journal, not vengeance, but data. Caroline and Ava want control through invisibility. I'll make myself undeniable instead. Days later, at the florist's, I arrive ahead of them. Eleanor, the owner, shows me the contract. Caroline and Ava sweep in, surprised. "Mother, you didn't need to bother." "I'm capable of approving flowers," I answer lightly. Their tight smiles falter. Then, within earshot, they murmur to Eleanor, "Her memory is slipping." We help manage her accounts. Eleanor's gaze shifts toward me, troubled. Later, she presses my hand. "If you ever need a witness to your clarity, Mrs. Sullivan, call me." Another ally, born not of my request, but of their cruelty. That evening, I play the recording of their whispers, the red light, blinking proof. I imagine their faces when their own words surface at the right moment. The pocket watch ticks steadily beside the recorder, each click a reminder. Time reveals truth, and soon, time will reveal me. By the end of the week, the pieces are aligning like a chessboard. I spend mornings walking through Boston Common, not aimlessly but deliberately. Neighbors and acquaintances note my stride, my presence, my unmistakable vitality. Each nod, each greeting is a subtle rebuttal to the fiction Caroline and Ava weave behind closed doors. That afternoon, Jackson arrives unannounced. His politeness is genuine, but his eyes betray unease. "Mrs. Sullivan," he begins, shifting in the wingback chair, "I wanted to ask, are you comfortable with everything? With the wedding? With Rebecca's plans?" "How thoughtful," I reply, folding my hands calmly. "Tell me, where did you think I'd be seated during the reception?" He hesitates. "At the family table, of course." "Why?" A small smile plays on my lips. "Apparently, my place is behind a column." His face flushes with shock. "That's not right." "Rebecca never mentioned—" "Consider what else she hasn't mentioned," I interrupt gently, "and think carefully about the family you're marrying into." He leaves unsettled, doubt planted like a seed. Seeds, when watered with truth, tend to grow. Later that evening, I sit in my study, papers spread across the desk, contracts with payment structures only I control, medical assessments proving my clarity, recordings cataloged with precision. I label a folder, Phase 2, Illumination. The sapphire brooch rests in its velvet box beside Judge Sullivan's pocket watch. 2 heirlooms, 2 legacies, one of tradition, one of time. I touch them both, and the line between past and present sharpens. They believe I'm a relic to be hidden. What they don't realize is this: I'm the architect of the stage they're performing on, and soon the lights will shift. 1 week before the wedding, I insist on a final walkthrough at the Fairmont. Sandra, the hotel's event coordinator, greets me in the gilded lobby with polished enthusiasm. She guides me through the ballroom, explaining placement of tables, floral arches, lighting cues. "And this will be your seat, Mrs. Sullivan," she says, pointing to a small circle on the floor plan. I step closer. The mark is clear. Bride's grandmother positioned directly behind one of the marble columns. How fascinating, I murmur. And whose decision was this? Miss Rebecca approved it personally, Sandra admits, shifting uncomfortably. She mentioned concerns that your visibility might distract from the photographs. My chest tightens, but decades of diplomacy keep my expression serene. My visibility, I repeat softly, how considerate. She stammers an apology, offering to move me. I raise a hand. No, Sandra. Leave it. Some columns are meant to obscure. Others, to reveal her confusion, nearly makes me smile. Before leaving, I confirm one last detail. And the final balance, still scheduled to process automatically at 8 p.m. on the wedding day? Yes, she replies, with a 24-hour cancellation option. Perfect, I say, turning toward the chandeliers. One must always be thorough when spending several $100,000. That evening, I call Judith. It's exactly as we suspected. They mean to seat me in shadow. Then shadow becomes your ally, she answers. The car will collect you at 8:15 Saturday evening. By then, the fuse will already be burning. I hang up, strangely calm. In my room, I pack deliberately. The brooch, the watch, documents no one else knows exist, and clothes I've chosen for myself. Not the pastel armor Caroline preferred. When I zip the case, I pause to write one line in my journal. They thought the column would hide me. Instead, it will frame their downfall. And for the first time in years, I sleep deeply. The Fairmont glitters like a jewel box on the night of the wedding. Crystal chandeliers scatter golden light across marble floors, and every detail screams opulence. Rebecca's dream, financed by my so-called decline. I arrive in a tailored navy silk ensemble. Judge Sullivan's pocket watch clipped at my wrist, the sapphire brooch tucked safely in my purse. Guests murmur compliments, but their eyes slide past quickly toward the bride. Perfect. Let them underestimate me one final time. Photographs proceed as expected. I'm positioned politely at the periphery, easy to crop later. Jackson catches my gaze, frowning slightly, but Rebecca summons him away before he can speak. During the ceremony, I keep my composure, an elegant grandmother smiling from the second row. But at the reception, a waiter escorts me to my designated table, behind the massive marble column. From here, I see only slivers of the dance floor through narrow angles, invisible, forgotten, exactly as they planned. "Would you prefer a better view, Mrs. Sullivan?" the waiter asks quietly, embarrassed. "This is exactly where my granddaughter wants me," I reply, voice calm, "and tonight is about her happiness." He hesitates, then bows. Respect flickers in his eyes, the kind I no longer expect from family. I sip my water, watching the room pulse with laughter and music, and note the time, 7:30 p.m. 30 minutes until the balance is due. Jackson slips into the empty chair beside me. "I'm sorry," he says. "I only learned of this seating yesterday. Rebecca claimed you preferred less commotion. Did you believe her?" I ask softly. His silence is answer enough. Across the ballroom, Rebecca calls him sharply. He rises, but not before whispering, "You're nothing like they describe." I glance at my watch. 7:55. Time to move. I gather my purse and cross the floor with measured grace. Rebecca barely looks up when I kiss her cheek. "Every Sullivan bride should know the legacy she inherits," I whisper. Then Caroline notices me. "Mother, you're not leaving already?" I've seen everything I needed to see. I press her hand once, gently. "Enjoy the evening." In the lobby, the clock strikes 8 o'clock. My phone call is brief. This is Margaret Sullivan. Authorization code, Sullivan, 1944. Cancel all pending transfers. Confirmed, Mrs. Sullivan, the banker replies. Outside, a sleek black car waits. As Boston's skyline slides past, I let the brooch catch the streetlights, its sapphires glowing like cold fire. Behind me, champagne flows, speeches rise, and laughter fills the ballroom. But somewhere in the system, every vendor's account flashes the same message: transaction canceled by account holder. Phase 1 is complete. Morning sunlight washes across the Arno as my plane descends into Florence. I cradle a porcelain cup of espresso on the terrace of Villa Ledetta just hours later, the Tuscan hills unfurling like a tapestry before me. The sapphire brooch rests beside my saucer, glinting as though it too understands victory. Meanwhile, in Boston, chaos blooms. Judith's email arrives by noon, crisp and clinical. Vendors unpaid. Rebecca and Jackson detained at the Fairmont until charges cleared. Caroline's reputation fraying among society friends. Whispers spreading fast. Why was Margaret Sullivan seated behind a column after financing everything? I imagine the scene clearly. Rebecca's cheeks flushed as she argues with the hotel manager. Jackson grim with embarrassment. Caroline scrambling to salvage face with creditors. The invisible matriarch suddenly visible everywhere. Through rumor, speculation, and carefully planted perception, 2 cream envelopes now work their way through Boston. One waits at the Fairmont for Rebecca. A letter penned in my hand enclosing transcripts of her own disdain, confirmation of my cognitive assessment, and the simple line, "Respect is earned, not inherited." The second, addressed to Jackson alone, contains only their words, not mine. A chance for him to decide where loyalty lies. At sunset, I stroll through Florence's narrow streets, the pocket watch warm in my palm. George's voice echoes as if carried on the bells of Santa Croce. "You've always been 3 moves ahead, Maggie." I smile. He was right. Juanetti. 3 weeks later, I return to Beacon Hill. My house, once stripped of its soul, now blooms again with hydrangeas and photographs restored to their rightful places. Eleanor greets me at the door, her loyalty a quiet anchor. "Everything as you requested, Mrs. Sullivan." That evening, Caroline, Rebecca, and Jackson sit at my dining table. No columns, no shadows. I outline new terms. The foundation I've built, the protections I've sealed, the expectations I now demand. Caroline bristles. Rebecca wilts. Jackson listens. The sapphire brooch rests on the table between us, not as gift, but as challenge. Legacy, I tell them, is not marble walls or family trusts. It is respect, guarded and taught. I failed once in letting you forget that. I will not fail again. Their silence is heavy, but for the first time, it is not dismissive. It is listening. Later, alone on the balcony, I lift my journal and write 5 words beneath the Florence entries. Happy anniversary to my freedom. The stars shimmer above Boston, not as witnesses, but as accomplices. The strategist has reclaimed her seat, no longer behind a column, but firmly at the head of her own table.